Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bold and Beautiful today.
Ridge Forrester stood under that arch, clad in a finely tailored charcoal suit, his salt and pepper hair combed back with signature elegance. His face carried that stoic look he wore so often, but his eyes betrayed a rare vulnerability. Today was the day he would remarry Taylor Hayes, the woman he had loved, lost, and now reclaimed, after years of heartbreak, missed chances, and the meddling web of their interconnected lives. Guests from all walks of Ridge and Taylor's dramatic past had gathered, some reluctantly. Brooke Logan, Ridge's ex-wife and Taylor's longtime rival, sat silently in the front row, her expression unreadable, hands clenched tightly on her lap. Steffi and Thomas, their children, stood proudly as witnesses, smiling at their mother in her ivory off-shoulder gown, radiant with joy and hard-earned peace. Music began to play, soft strings underlining the reverent quiet. Taylor stepped forward, bouquet in hand, her eyes locked on Ridge's. It seemed, for a fleeting moment, like nothing could interrupt the serenity of the day. But then, from the back of the crowd, a figure appeared. It was Luna Nozawa. Gasps rippled through the attendees like wind through dry leaves. Luna, her dark hair cascading in waves, her eyes stormy, walked forward slowly, each step drawing shocked stares. She had disappeared weeks ago after a scandal that left the fashion house reeling and her relationship with the Forrester family in tatters. No one had seen or heard from her since. Rumors had swirled. Had she fled to Japan? Was she working in secret with a rival company? Her sudden reappearance at Ridge and Taylor's wedding was not only unexpected, it was catastrophic. She wore black, a flowing satin dress that clung like a shadow. Her expression was calm, but beneath it, something sinister simmered. Ridge took a half-step forward, brows furrowed. Taylor froze, her lips parting slightly as if to speak. Security began to stir, but Luna raised a hand. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said, her voice slicing through the shocked silence. "I'm here because the truth has to be known, before this wedding becomes another lie." The officiant looked awkwardly at Ridge, who nodded, signaling him to pause. The guests buzzed in anxious whispers. Luna walked slowly toward the front, her eyes never leaving Ridge. "You need to know what happened. All of you do. Because someone here, someone you trust, isn't who they say they are." And then she turned her gaze, piercing and icy, toward the back, where a man stood half-hidden near the vineyard trellis. It was Zend Forrester Dominguez. Luna pointed directly at him. Before anyone could react, a sharp noise cracked the air like a whip. A gunshot. Chaos erupted. Taylor screamed. Ridge staggered backward, clutching his chest. Blood began to seep through his crisp white shirt as he collapsed to the ground. Screams echoed across the vineyard. Guests dove behind chairs and tables. Steffi and Thomas rushed to their father's side. Brooke stood frozen, her hand clamped over her mouth. The shooter had vanished as quickly as he appeared. Panic seized the wedding like wildfire. Security scrambled into action, but the crowd was in turmoil. Luna dropped to her knees beside Ridge, shaking, trying to staunch the bleeding with her shawl. "Stay with us," she pleaded. "You're not dying. Not like this." Paramedics were called, and within minutes, Ridge was being lifted onto a stretcher, an oxygen mask pressed to his face, his skin pallid. "He's critical," one of them muttered. Taylor sobbed as she clutched Ridge's hand, refusing to let go until they pulled her back for the ambulance to depart. The wedding was forgotten. All that remained was blood on the grass and questions as sharp as shattered glass. Who fired the shot? Was Luna the target, or Ridge? And what truth had she come to reveal? In the hours that followed, the Forrester estate turned into a media circus. Reporters gathered outside the gates. The police launched an investigation immediately. Luna was taken in for questioning, not arrested, but held as a person of interest. She insisted she hadn't brought a weapon, and security footage confirmed it. She swore the shot hadn't come from her, but from the direction of the vineyard. The timing of her arrival, however, cast deep suspicion over her involvement. Zend had already fled by the time officers attempted to speak with him, further deepening the mystery. The family was left torn, Steffi furious that Luna had shown up at all, Thomas demanding answers, and Taylor spiraling into guilt and fear as she sat vigil beside Ridge's hospital bed. Brooke, surprisingly, stepped into a leadership role. She called an emergency family meeting. "We can't afford to let this destroy us again," she said firmly. "We've been broken before, by lies, by secrets, by pride. But if Ridge pulls through, we owe it to him to find the truth." It was Brooke who pressed Luna to speak, and when Luna finally did, the story she told shocked even the most hardened among them. Zend, it turned out, had been working secretly with a foreign investor who planned to take over Forrester Creations from within. Luna had discovered encrypted messages on Zend's laptop while they had been romantically involved. When she confronted him, he threatened her. She fled, fearing not just for her reputation, but for her life. It was only after weeks in hiding, gathering evidence, that she returned, choosing the wedding to make her statement because she knew it was the one place everyone important would be gathered. "I never thought he'd go this far," she whispered, trembling, after recounting the betrayal. "I thought, maybe he'd run. Not kill." The police issued a warrant for Zend's arrest. Meanwhile, Ridge remained in critical condition, hovering between life and death. Taylor stayed by his side constantly, whispering words of encouragement, her wedding dress now forgotten in a garment bag hanging in the hospital closet. Days passed with no significant improvement. Ridge was unresponsive. At night, Taylor would rest her head on the edge of the hospital bed, praying silently for the man she loved to open his eyes again. Steffi and Thomas took shifts, holding their father's hand, urging him to fight. Even Brooke sat beside him once, silently crying, the past slipping away in the face of mortality. Then came the turning point. A week after the shooting, Ridge stirred. His fingers twitched. His heart rate steadied. When he finally opened his eyes, the room flooded with emotion. Taylor wept openly. Ridge tried to speak, but his throat was dry. "Don't talk," Taylor said, stroking his hair. "You're safe now." But Ridge, hoarse and barely audible, muttered, "Who shot me?" The investigation continued. Zend was eventually caught boarding a flight to Dubai. He didn't resist arrest but offered no confession. At trial, the evidence was damning: emails, financial transfers, Luna's testimony, and a gun recovered near the vineyard with Zend's fingerprints. He was sentenced to 25 years for attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. Ridge, after multiple surgeries and months of rehabilitation, survived, but he was changed. Physically weakened and emotionally shaken, he reassessed everything: his career, his priorities, his capacity to forgive. The wedding never resumed. Instead, Ridge and Taylor quietly exchanged vows months later in a private ceremony with only immediate family. No press. No extravagance. Just love, raw, honest, and earned. Luna, vindicated but emotionally scarred, left Los Angeles to start fresh. She had been cleared of wrongdoing, but the shadow of the wedding day shooting followed her wherever she went. Brooke and Taylor, surprisingly, forged an unexpected friendship out of the chaos. They bonded over their shared grief, their shared love for Ridge, and the need to protect their children from repeating the same cycles of deception and pain. As for Ridge, for the first time in decades, he stopped chasing ideals and started living. The shooting was a tragedy, yes, but it was also a rupture in the timeline of their lives, one that allowed space for something new to grow: truth, reconciliation, and maybe even peace. Forrester Creations weathered the storm, rebuilding under Steffi's strong leadership, with Thomas designing again and Luna's name etched quietly into the company history, not as a villain, but as the one who tried to stop the unthinkable. And so, in the shadow of gunfire and heartbreak, love endured, not as a fairy tale, but as something much harder and far more real. Steffi worries about Taylor's engagement as Luna pursues Hayes. While Steffi Forrester expresses some concerns regarding Taylor Hayes' engagement to Ridge Forrester, Luna Nozawa will go look for Hayes Finnegan and give him a second gift. She will nevertheless go to the beach home and approach Hayes again in spite of the extensive Luna search that will be going on. Luna will use this chance to offer her half-brother another gift because Hayes has been enrolled in a summer painting program there. Hayes may receive another origami design from Luna to take home. If Luna gives a hint as to who gave it, it might be an attempt to frighten Steffi. Maybe Luna could create this next piece of art using the picture of Steffi off her refrigerator, the one with the bullet holes from target practice. Steffi might discover that Luna gave this to Hayes if she opens the origami and discovers her own shot-at face. Now that her mother has provided her with some fantastic updates, Steffi will concentrate on Taylor's engagement news for the time being. Despite her continued excitement for Taylor, Steffi will be apprehensive about the timing given the ongoing upheaval in Luna. Steffi will wish they could all just focus on the happiness of this moment in Tuesday's BNB episode. Taylor might counter that there will be plenty of time to rejoice later, but it won't seem fair that Luna is taking all the limelight and making things tense instead. Naturally, Steffi may also voice concerns about Brooke Logan and her potential to ruin this engagement. Taylor will, however, continue to feel confident in Ridge's devotion, particularly now that he has reinforced it by agreeing to her proposal. Taylor is going to have an unpleasant awakening later on, even though she would hope to spend a happy life with Ridge. Luna Nozawa stood at the edge of the sun-warmed deck, her fingers curled around a small, delicately folded bundle of paper, another carefully crafted piece of origami, this time resembling a phoenix, blazing red and deep indigo, its wings spread as if in defiance of the past. She had spent hours on it, each crease sharp with intention, each fold weighted with emotion she didn't dare speak aloud. In her other hand, she held a second item, a photo of Steffi Forrester from the refrigerator in the Cliff House, riddled with bullet holes from her own target practice, accidental or not. Luna wasn't sure if she was offering this gift to her younger half-brother Hayes Finnegan as a peace gesture or a subtle message, but the action felt necessary. It had been days since the chaos began, since her secret connection to Poppy's past with Bill Spencer turned the Forrester world upside down, and the fallout had yet to settle. Despite the family's growing panic over Luna's whereabouts, RJ especially losing sleep over not hearing from her, Luna had slipped away from the frantic search to find the one person she hadn't yet spoken to, Hayes. He was young, perhaps too young to understand the tensions that were curling through the Forrester family like smoke after a fire, but he represented something pure, untouched. Luna wanted to give him something beautiful before the inevitable storm returned. As she knocked on the weather-beaten door of the beach house, the smell of sea salt and oil paints drifted out through the open window. Hayes had been attending a summer art program nearby, and Luna knew this would be her best, and perhaps only, chance to reach him without Steffi intervening. The boy answered the door with the easy, unaffected joy of childhood, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "Luna," he exclaimed, and without waiting for permission, threw his arms around her. Luna laughed softly, the sound tinged with sadness. She crouched down, placing the phoenix into his hands. "Another gift," she whispered, brushing his hair back from his face. "This one means rebirth. Rising from ashes." Hayes's brow furrowed curiously, and Luna only smiled. "You'll understand one day." Then, more gently, she added, "Tell your mommy it came from me, okay?" He nodded solemnly, clutching the origami tightly before darting back into the house. Luna didn't wait around. She turned and walked down the wooden stairs, back toward the sand, her bare feet sinking into the warmth as she disappeared down the shoreline, her message left behind like a whispered secret. Back at the Forrester estate, Steffi Forrester was unaware of Luna's visit, for now. She stood beside the massive picture windows overlooking the garden, holding a glass of wine she hadn't touched, her fingers tight around the stem. Her mother, Taylor Hayes, was across the room, radiant with happiness as she recounted every detail of Ridge Forrester's renewed proposal. Steffi wanted to be excited. She wanted to feel only joy. But something gnawed at her gut, and it wasn't just the worry over Luna's unpredictable behavior. Taylor's news should have brought a sense of security, of family finally being restored, yet all Steffi could feel was tension. Luna had become an unwelcome wild card, a presence that refused to be ignored. Ever since Poppy's confession about Bill being Luna's father had shattered the delicate peace in their circle, Luna had grown increasingly distant, then erratic. Her actions, though subtle, carried an undertone of manipulation. And now, with Luna going off the grid and reappearing in unexpected places, like Hayes' summer program, Steffi couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. I just wish we could focus on this, Steffi said, turning to Taylor, her voice almost pleading. You and Ridge, this should be our moment. Your moment. Taylor smiled patiently, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. We will, sweetheart. Don't let Luna's drama steal our joy. She's young, confused, probably feeling abandoned now that everything's come out. But Steffi shook her head. She's not just confused. She's sending messages. I found the photo from my fridge. The one I used for target practice last year, you remember? It's missing. Taylor's eyes widened, her brow knitting together. Are you saying Luna took it? I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if she's behind the origami Hayes brought home last week. There was something off about it. It wasn't just a pretty design. It felt pointed. Taylor's voice was calm, but a flicker of concern passed across her features. Luna wouldn't hurt Hayes. No, Steffi agreed. But she might use him to rattle me. Meanwhile, at the Forrester Creations office, Ridge was busy balancing a string of meetings while fielding congratulatory calls from family and friends about his renewed engagement. His mind, however, kept wandering to Taylor, how she'd surprised him with her calm proposal at the Cliff House, how he hadn't hesitated to say yes this time. It was a different feeling now, more solid, less reactionary. And yet, in the back of his mind, he couldn't help but wonder how Brooke Logan would respond. Ridge had spoken with her briefly since the announcement. She had been gracious, even warm, but there had been something brittle in her tone. Ridge knew her well enough to recognize the warning signs. Brooke didn't back down easily, and she had a long history of not accepting endings. What worried him more was how Luna might fit into all of this. She was already the spark that had ignited Steffi's growing paranoia, and now he heard she'd resurfaced just long enough to leave Hayes a gift? Ridge made a mental note to talk to Steffi soon. Back at the beach house, Steffi returned later that evening to find Hayes asleep with the Phoenix origami clutched in his hand. Her stomach clenched as she gently pried it away, unfolding the delicate wings to find something shocking inside, a miniature printout of that photo, her photo, riddled with the bullet holes from the original, folded into the core of the Phoenix like a hidden message. Her breath caught. This wasn't random. It wasn't innocent. This was deliberate. Steffi's hands shook as she stared at the creases. Each fold now felt like a threat. She sat on the edge of Hayes' bed, the boy's chest rising and falling in gentle sleep, and tried to steady her racing thoughts. Luna had crossed a line, and Steffi could no longer afford to pretend otherwise. She would confront Luna, but not until she had figured out her next move. The next morning, Steffi arrived at the Cliff House to find Taylor having breakfast on the deck, sunlight catching the edges of her silver-streaked hair. Mom, Steffi said, no longer bothering to soften her tone, we need to talk about Luna. And about Ridge. Taylor set down her coffee. Steffi, I know you're worried, but Ridge and I are strong, nothing Brooke says or does can change that. It's not Brooke I'm worried about, Steffi said flatly. It's what happens when the foundation isn't solid. Luna's presence is stirring up too much. She's a variable we can't control. If she's trying to send a message, if she's trying to mess with me through Hayes, what else is she willing to do? Taylor sighed. She's just a girl trying to understand where she fits in. Don't villainize her yet. I'm not, Steffi replied. But I am preparing for a war. Because Luna isn't playing by the same rules we are. What Steffi didn't know was that Luna had retreated to a quiet, remote artist retreat, one she had found listed on the back of a flyer in Hayes' art program materials. She wasn't hiding, she was thinking. Processing. Folding paper. The art had become her therapy, her way of expressing what she couldn't verbalize. She wasn't trying to threaten Steffi, at least, not consciously. But a part of her had always resented the way the Forrester women closed ranks, casting her mother out, treating Luna as an outsider despite her DNA. Luna knew her actions would stir a reaction. She wanted one. She needed Steffi to see her, even if it was through anger. As she crafted a new design, a dragon with eyes made from shards of broken mirror, she wondered what her next move would be. She wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Back in LA, the buzz around Taylor and Ridge's engagement continued to grow, but so did the tension. Brooke had requested a private lunch with Ridge, and despite Taylor's calm exterior, Steffi could see her mother was rattled. "She's going to try something," Steffi warned again, but Taylor only smiled faintly. If Ridge could be taken that easily, he was never mine to begin with. It was a noble sentiment, but Steffi wasn't reassured. She had seen this pattern before. Brooke's ability to sabotage from the sidelines was legendary, and with Luna's quiet rebellion stirring from the shadows, the Forrester family was about to be tested in ways none of them had prepared for. And so, as the sun dipped below the horizon once again over Malibu, painting the ocean in shades of fire and gold, Luna folded her next creation, an origami wolf, its teeth bared in a silent snarl. She placed it inside an envelope addressed to Ridge Forrester, personal. No return address. No explanation. Only a message, folded and fierce, waiting to be understood. The game had only just begun. Will there be another mother-daughter love triangle with Bridget Forrester? Nick Marone. According to online rumors, one of his ex-girlfriends may return to town this summer, and she will bring a lot of trouble with her. Does Bridget Forrester have plans to return to Los Angeles? Hold on, is she visiting her baby daddy or her mother? Read on for all the facts about what's coming up on Bold and Beautiful this summer. On Bold and the Beautiful, Nick and Bridget. From 1996 to 2013, Bridget Forrester was a major character on the daytime soap opera. She had a brief comeback in 2015. Since then, the character has made occasional appearances. As a doctor, she typically shows up when someone has a tumor or is in the hospital. Even though Bridget is a gifted female doctor, her scandalous love triangle with Captain Nick Marone and her mother Brooke Logan is what makes her famous on The Bold and the Beautiful. Indeed, at one time on the CBS serial opera, Brooke got into a battle with her own daughter over Nick. Oh no! Brooke actually offered her daughter and her ex-husband her blessing to be married at one point in the early days of Nick and Bridget's relationship. However, it seems it was abandoned because she subsequently started having covert affairs with her daughter's husband. In fact, Nick alternated between the mother and daughter several times. Will Bridget and Nick visit her mother? It just so happens that someone on Bold and Beautiful is battling a tumor, and Liam Spencer might benefit from Bridget's expert assistance. What if Bridget Forrester encounters her mother Brooke and her ex-husband Nick Marone while returning to assist Liam? Will the previous conflict between the mother and daughter over the captain be revived? Which Logan woman, in your opinion, does Nick get along with the best?